Let me start by telling you a story. I was online, minding my own business, and a preaching friend of mine sent me a message. "Can you do me a favor?" he asked. I love doing favors, so I responded appropriately. Turns out he needed my phone number for some sort of problem he was having with Facebook. That sounded weird, since I was pretty sure he already had my phone number, but no problem, I sent him my number. You're probably ahead of me on this. I certainly hope you are. Just in case, though, let me skip to the practical application. Never, ever give your phone number or email out to someone on social media. And if it seems vitally important that you do so, for whatever reason, at least make sure you're giving it to the actual person you think you're communicating with. I was not. It was a hacker. Before too long, he had taken over my Facebook account, changed my password and contact information, and essentially locked me out of my own social media. My Instagram account, which I hardly ever used, was linked to Facebook, so that's corrupted too. Since I did not have a photograph for my avatar, and without any other way of confirming my story, Facebook refused to hand the keys back over to me. Soon it became apparent that my circle of friends, the contacts I'd created for spreading the gospel, the little bits of business I had put together and shared online, all of that was gone forever. At this point, I found myself at a crossroads. I could do without, or I could start over. I gave door number one a good, hard look. A couple of weeks without Facebook convinced me that I was in many, if not most ways, better off without it. Social media can take over your life pretty quickly, like cigarettes or binge watching The Mentalist, one of which I have actual personal experience with. But in the end, I decided to give Facebook another try, if only to help my online ministry function more effectively. It was 2010 all over again. I scrolled through my memory bank to find as many names as I could. I clicked on suggested friends. I found several hundred of my old contacts, assured them that I was actually who I said I was, and urged them to accept my new friend request and to unfriend the imposter. A few days later, Facebook banned me, the real me. Apparently, my treatment of the hacker was not in keeping with the spirit of kindness and openness that Mr. Zuckerberg is trying to maintain. There's some irony for you. So there I was, back at the crossroads. The same choices lay in front of me as before, with "don't give them the satisfaction" piled on top of the already sizable stack of reasons to quit Facebook permanently. But bitterness is unbecoming in others. I really shouldn't practice it myself. So a kinder, gentler Hal set up a third Facebook account. And as of July 27th, 2023, that account is still active. Look for me under Hal L. Hammonds. That middle initial makes all the difference. My adventures and misadventures have given me a new perspective on social media, and Facebook in particular. I'd like to share them with you here today. I hope that you will find them useful in your efforts to honor God and bear the name of Jesus. The first problem I want to address is the problem of security. And the solution to the security problem is going to be controlling your access. If someone more computer literate than I were to chime in here and say our entire life is already online, that's a complete security is out of our reach, probably forever, I would be inclined to believe him. But frankly, I'm not worried about the Chinese getting access to my credit card information and fingerprints, although I admit that's one of the many reasons why I am not on TikTok. No, I'm more worried about going through another round with my hacker buddy or one of his pals. Either way, like they tell you during the safety briefing we usually ignore when we fly on an airplane, you have to save yourself before you concern yourself with saving anyone else. I have an obligation to be responsible with the things that are entrusted to me. I usually talk about my children, my wife, and my money when this subject comes up, but my reputation is important as well. I put myself out there for the world to see when I engage in social media. I'm obligated to tell the truth IRL, that's in real life, for those who are even more behind the times than I am. And if I'm obligated to tell the truth IRL, I need to make sure virtual Hal is also telling the truth. Some biblical measures about privacy and judgment will go a long way here. Proverbs was given to us in large measure to give prudence to the naive, to the youth knowledge and discretion. That's Proverbs 1, verse 4. The words discreet and discretion occur 11 times in the New American Standard Bible. All but 3 of those are in the book of Proverbs. I don't think that's an accident. We tend to think of wisdom as being the ability to say and do the right thing at the right time. And that's certainly part of it. But Solomon says it's also critical to know what not to say. In Proverbs 5:2, the young man is urged to maintain discretion, especially in the context of the adulterous woman. She is very engaging in her speech. The temptation is to banter back and forth with her. Perhaps it is innocent or supposedly innocent flirtation. Your continued conversation with her may even be an effort to bring her out of the darkness and into the light. But the more you open up to someone who means you harm, and the adulteress means you harm, the more vulnerable you become. Good intentions do not guarantee good or harmless results. Certainly, we must always fight the good fight, but sometimes discretion is the better part of valor. Joseph did not linger with Potiphar's wife to debate the proper conduct of married women. He fled the scene. We need to know when to flee the scene as well. Control access to your information. On the extreme end of the spectrum, don't even go online, let alone on social media. Most of us find that impossible or at least inadvisable. You certainly don't, or else you would be turning into a sermon or presentation online, right? But to choose your toe, to stick your toe or more than your toe into the virtual world, you need to make sure that your level of alertness matches your level of openness. If you connect your Facebook account to search engines, credit cards, multiple causes, external websites, family photos, and all the rest of it, make sure you change your passwords on a regular basis. I'm changing mine this week. And please, by all means, if you get a note from me asking for a favor, contact me directly in some other way. Problem 2 is addiction, and the solution to addiction is controlling your time. I'm not qualified really to talk about social media addiction, but plenty of people are. Studies abound, and they all seem to come to the same conclusion. People, especially young people, have trouble putting their devices away. And I don't need a team of social scientists from the University of whatever to tell me that when people would rather stare at their phones than converse with an actual human sitting right there in front of them, there's a bug in the ointment there. Social media communication is like exchanging effectiveness for reach. You have 1,000 friends with whom you'll share photos of your dinner, but no friends you can really trust. These virtual friends are great at giving you a quick hit of dopamine when you think you need one. You get a bad haircut, you have a mean boss, your toe hurts, whatever. All they have to do is share an emoji, and their work is done. You've trained them to feel helpful when they do the tiniest of things in support of you. But that's likely all you will get. It all goes back to when we had regular telephones, landlines, with wires that connected them to the walls of our houses. We became accustomed in the 20th century to use phone calls when previously we would need to communicate face-to-face. A phone call was a huge upgrade in convenience, but relationships suffered. Thankfully, the people who you would call for free, and yes, you used to have to call at a toll for some places in far-off places in the country, those free phone calls may have been close enough to visit if the situation called for it. But these days, texting and DMs are legitimate and preferred substitutes for conversation. Be honest with yourself. You've texted someone who was in the same room as you at some point, right? Proverbs 18:24 reads, "A person of too many friends comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother." Believe it or not, Solomon was not on Facebook, and yet he knew the difference between quantity and quality. I've been blessed in recent years to establish relationships with many good people whom I have not met in the flesh. I don't want to diminish that blessing. Strong connections can be formed through the internet, no doubt about it. But I've had occasion to meet a handful of those friends in the flesh at various times. BJ and Kylie Sipe, Edwin and Marita Crozier, Scott Taylor, Terry Francis. And I can tell you, meeting in person becomes all the more special when you've when you've been able to warm up, if you will, with an online friendship. And once you've had the one, you realize how unsatisfied you were with the other, and you never want to go back. The problem with trusting social media's slow, steady drip of affirmation is twofold. One, as we've already discussed, you rob yourself of real, satisfying fellowship. Two, and this is where the addiction comes in, panic sets in if somehow the drip gets interrupted. By the very nature of these relationships, you have very little assurance that any real substance exists. If you send out a cry for help to your 1,000 friends and go half an hour without any takers, it feels like you're absolutely alone in the world. The truth is, you already were. The constant checking for comments, likes, and shares brings with it the added problem of distraction. Most people have an actual life. They may see social media as an opportunity to escape from that life, and perhaps that isn't entirely bad. But social media has become so pervasive in our culture that it is possible, perhaps even customary depending on what decade you were born in, to live in the virtual world and only duck out occasionally to deal with matters that absolutely can't be ignored. The solution is as simple as it is challenging. Take time out. I made a deliberate decision not to install the Facebook app on my phone when I got reconnected. Instead of checking my virtual world constantly, I read. I listen to podcasts. Occasionally, I even have conversations with my family. And in a surprising twist, I think I'm actually spending considerably less time on Facebook, even on my laptop. Maybe I was more addicted than I realized. Paul writes in Ephesians 5, verses 15 and 16, "So then, be careful how you walk, not as unwise people, but as wise, making the most of your time, because the days are evil." Perhaps if Paul were writing today, he would have written, "Be careful how you use social media." We are far too quick to like something that seems to be clever, far too quick to jump into fights not concerning us and not fully understood by us, and far too quick to unfriend someone who disagrees with us. Wisdom, fairness, and brotherly love call us to step slowly in such situations, if at all. The days have not gotten any less evil in the last 2,000 years, I suspect. I strongly suggest that you create situations in your day that require you to be away from social media. You're likely overestimating the chances of receiving a meme or DM that requires your immediate attention. The time you're spending, for instance, with a good book, or better yet, with the good book, will be better without the interruption. Problem 3 is gossip and useless talk, and the solution is to control your subject matter. I feel compelled to comment here not just on the importance we place on social media and the shallowness of the life that we find there, but also the quality of the activity that we engage in. It's a scientific fact that lies spread faster than the truth. Fake news resonates with the average consumer more effectively than actual news, and that's whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. Mark Twain once said, "A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes." Except Mark Twain probably never said that. But try convincing your Facebook friends of that. Fires are far more easily lit than extinguished, and they have never been so easily lit as today in the age of the internet. Gossip and libel travel at the speed of Twitter, and once the toothpaste is out of the tube, there's no getting it back in. There's just an enormous mess to clean up. Today's hot take will get 4 Pinocchios next week, but it doesn't matter. The retraction is never as loud and proud as the mistake. And anyway, we've all moved on to the next hot take anyway. The quality of the fuel is irrelevant. All that matters is stoking the fire. Christians who supposedly love the truth should have learned the lesson by now. Solomon told us long ago in Proverbs 23:23, "Buy truth and do not sell it. Get wisdom, instruction, and understanding." But truth is not sold in the express lane. It is acquired and refined through arduous work. Read Job 28 when you get a chance. Searching for wisdom is harder than searching for gold or jewels. We don't even know where to look. Thankfully, in matters of faith, God has shown us the path. And by accepting Jesus Christ, through whom truth was realized and personified, John 1:17, we receive the truth that will set us free, John 8:31-32. What does God's truth have to do with whether Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez are going to make it work this time? Actually, more than you might think. One, an affinity for God's truth should make us automatically less interested in what's going on out there in the world. If we don't care about the rumor, we're far less likely to spread it. Two, a respect for the nature of truth should help us realize how nuanced truth can be and how unlikely it is that a 30-second blurb has given us all the relevant facts. Three, and perhaps most importantly, the things we say reflect the kind of person we are on the inside. Jesus says in Matthew 15:11, "It is not what goes into the mouth that defiles a person, but what comes out of the mouth. This defiles a person." He explains the statement later in verses 17 through 20. Don't you realize that whatever goes into the mouth passes into the stomach and is eliminated? But what comes out of the mouth comes from the heart, and this defiles a person. For from the heart come evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, sexual immoralities, thefts, false testimonies, slander. These are the things that defile a person. But eating with unwashed hands does not defile a person. It's obvious that Jesus did not refer to the words that have come out of our thumbs while we're on social media. It's equally obvious that he would have had Twitter and Instagram been present in the first century. If our posts are consumed with frivolities, idle speculation, character assassination, and a general spirit of schadenfreude, our friends are going to think that we are consumed with carnal concerns and only carnal concerns. And you know what? They might be right. I have a friend, a brother in Christ named Zeke Flores. I see him on Facebook every day, dropping homespun wisdom, punny witticisms, and dad jokes. He brightens my day. But even more often than that, he is sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. He sees this form of communication in the same way he sees every other form, a way of sharing Jesus with the world. He does that in part by communicating the Word of God. He also does it by showing the spirit of joy that flows from him every hour of every day. Even if you've never met Zeke in the flesh, you see the joy and you hear the message. And when the message doesn't get cluttered, it doesn't take long to realize the one comes from the other. I challenge you to use Facebook and other social media to shine the light of Jesus. I always encourage my friends to tithe Facebook. If you can't manage to talk about spiritual matters at least 10% of the time, you might have a carnality problem. And it's the easiest thing in the world to check, by the way. When we're done here, check your posts. Do a quick calculation. You may be surprised at what you find out. So what have we learned today? We've learned that Hal needs to be more careful online. More to the point, we've learned that security online is a real problem, and there's no reason to think it's going to get better anytime soon. Everyone and his brother seems to be selling some sort of security network that will keep your information safe, and by all means, pursue that sort of solution if you think it's necessary. But personal responsibility is a far more effective tool, and if you don't exercise personal responsibility, it won't matter what other means you employ. If you're a fan of college football, you've likely heard more than you care to hear about NIL in the last few years, name, image, and likeness. College athletes are now being compensated for what they bring to the table. And let me tell you, your identity is being sold to the highest bidder all over the internet today, and you'll never see a penny from it. All you can do is try to limit the damage it will do to your reputation. We've learned that social media can be every bit as addictive as alcohol, tobacco, or pornography. And although the visible effects may not be quite as obvious as other indulgences, they can be every bit as destructive. And the more you build up the fake relationships you find online, the weaker your relationships with real humans becomes. You wind up starving yourself to death socially, while all the while bragging about how many friends you have. Do not limit yourself to faces and data on a screen. Get to know people personally, especially in the church. Build real relationships. If necessary, take specific measures to limit the amount of time you spend online. And certainly monitor the time your children spend online. Small, developing minds are looking for guides to show them down life's road. Do not let those guides be virtual ones. Nothing good will come of that. We've learned the old computer programming adage is true regarding people using computers. Garbage in, garbage out. If you occupy yourself with carnal affairs, You will be perceived as a carnal person by your peers, and you very well may become one. Christians should know better than that. If you're a child of God, you're committed to high and holy things. Colossians 3:2 reads, "Set your mind on things above, not on earthly things." If you want something more specific, try Philippians 4:8. Whatever's true, whatever's honorable, whatever's just, whatever's pure, whatever's lovely, whatever's commendable, if there is any excellence and if anything worthy of praise, dwell on these things. The things that occupy our screen time are the things that are occupying our heart time. If you're struggling to feel comfortable in your spiritual skin, if you find yourself drifting into worldly habits, it's likely that the influences you're seeking out online are contributing to the problem. If you turn that around, if you start feeding your spirit, you may see that trend start to reverse itself. It's worth a try at least. I hope and pray that these words will help you glorify God in whatever endeavor you choose, especially online endeavors. May the Lord bless you and keep you.